Hi BookTube, it's Chelsea, the Reading Outlaw, here to do a very belated Dune in June update. I am about 2 weeks behind on my videos, but I am plugging right along with the reading, so this is going to be a kind of discussion, spoiler-filled thoughts on the first and second book of Dune by Frank Herbert as a part of Paul from Common Touch of Fantasy's Dune in June read-along. So, like I said, there will be spoilers ahead, and diving right into it, we learn from the very beginning that there is a betrayal plot in effect for the House Atreides, and that somebody is going to betray the Duke, and he's going to die. This is something that is known. It has been prophesied. The Duke is aware of it, and so the end of the first book sees this actual event occurring. The Duke is assassinated via a it's actually really clever, via a hollow tooth filled with poison and a little bit of brainwashing that essentially gets him to bite down on the tooth and release the poison when he's in the room with the Baron Hadrakar, I believe is how you say it. Hadakar, I believe is how you say the last name. And he's the one who has plotted to murder the Atreides Duke, and also Jessica, the Duke's wife for all intents and purposes, although they're never actually married, and Paul, who is their son, who is our main character. Lots of other things also happen in the first book. The focus of the book and kind of the overall plot is the evolution of Paul into the Muad'Dib, which is this kind of holy figure, religious prophet, wise man who we already know in the future comes to exist. This book is one of those that's filled with a lot of questions as to how, not exactly a lot of questions as to what. We know a lot of what happens from the very beginning. There are a lot of prophecies that are made, and that's not to say that all of them are going to come true. I don't know that they're all going to come true. Like I said, as of now, I'm about halfway through the third book. But I'm only, so I'm not done with it yet. So I don't know what is and isn't going to happen. But there are lots of things that are prophesied to occur. So far, quite a few of those things have happened. So it's really more a question of how things happen the way that they do and why things happen than it is like what is actually going to happen, which I think is interesting. I think it makes for a very, sorry, my bangs are itching my forehead, so I can't stop messing with them. But anyway, so it makes for a very interesting book. I think it's definitely helped out by the fact that this book has such a kind of theological and mystical element to it. There's a lot of the book and a lot of the plot that revolves around whether or not Paul fits kind of the prophecy that these desert people on the planet of Arrakis are looking for. I should explain a couple other I'm sorry, I'm doing this review horribly. I'm just like not even explaining things as I'm going along. But some things you should know that become important in the second book. Jessica is what's called Bene Gesserit. It's kind of like a holy order for women that has a specialty in mysticism. They have a power when they speak. They can use something called the voice, and that gives them basically like influence over the person they're speaking to. A little bit like the Force, these are not the droids you're looking for kind of thing. But essentially she has passed that along to Paul, and Paul, her son, is rumored to be the Hodwatch Kizarak, basically the male Bene Gesserit who's going to kind of like lead this, religious revolution, or at least that's what I'm getting from it. Their family is sent to Arrakis, which is a desert planet, which and specializes in a spice called melange, which is a cinnamon-smelling spice that I guess keeps you young, or keeps you from getting old. I think maybe, I don't know. It's addicting. They mine it. It's super expensive. There are these things called sandworms that live in this giant, like, you can kind of see on the cover, like, this is not the best way to show you. But yeah, it's a desert planet, and there are these giant sandworms. There are also the Freemen, who are the desert-dwelling kind of natives of the planet. And it's with these Freemen that Paul and Jessica escape with after the successful assassination of the Duke. The same man who betrays the Duke is also the same man who saves Paul and Jessica. His His name's Dr. Yua, and he is, a very interesting character because of that. He does what he does because the Harkonnen family is threatening his wife. They have her imprisoned, but he also doesn't want to do what he has to do because he hates the Harkonnen family because they kidnapped his wife and are torturing her and imprisoning her. So he has to do what he has to do to the Duke, but he also wants to save the Duke's family. And so he helps them escape. They're on the run in the desert, and pretty much all of book two is them meeting the Freeman people and starting to kind of get accustomed to the Freeman life. Paul, right towards the beginning of book two, kind of has like a, I don't want to call it like a break. Like it's not like a schizophrenic break or anything, but he kind of comes into his the early stages of his fulfilling the prophecy. Like he kind of has this um religious experience and reaction, and where he can see the future and where he starts to get prophecies, and he's starting to realize and kind of accept his bigger role, not just now as like the Duke of the House Atreides, but also as, this bigger influence in the universe. And he's kind of coming to grips with that, and he starts to have these visions and kind of become this philosophical leader and visionary. I liked the second part of the book. Stilgar, who is like the Freeman leader who kind of takes in Jessica and Paul, he is so far my favorite character in the book besides Jessica. I would be totally okay if him and Jessica wanted to start shipping it hardcore, because I just think that that would be awesome. I like Stilgar way more than the Duke. I also really am enjoying learning about like the details of the Freeman culture and how they do it. Like I like learning about the still suits, and the still tents, and all of these ways that the Freemans have kind of found to live in the rocks and work with the worms and work with their environment. This book is very interesting because it has, for a classic of science fiction, it has quite a bit to say, not only about religion, but also about ecology and about working with your planet and taking care of your planet, and, what happens when you're a person who knows the place that you come from and how to work with it and how to benefit from it, and how that can be different when you're kind of a foreign or invasive presence in that environment or in your area. So it's really interesting in that respect. I also think that it's just incredibly interesting, this relationship that we get between Paul and Jessica, because from the beginning, Jessica is kind of hoping that Paul is this mystical Haswat Kitterach that they're all looking for, because originally she's kind of commanded by the leader, the great mother of the Bene Gesserit, to have a daughter, because, daughters, this Bene Gesserit line is an all-female kind of thing, and so she's supposed to have a daughter who can kind of become a part of this group and who can study under her, but she kind of defies that, and she has a son, and she has Paul, and she trains him in this way. And what I love about it is the focus of this kind of religion is that it's a very much so almost Eastern philosophy based, is that it's about being aware of the moment. So it's about calming your breath, letting go of fear, letting go of anxiety, noticing, taking stock of the incredibly small details around you, and from that building up a picture of the event that you're in, as opposed to letting fear and reaction responses overwhelm you. I also really like that there's a really big mystical element, like I said, with like the voice and the ability to compel people to do things and the ability to make prophesy and all of that. I just think that it's really interesting, and I like that it's something that's so female based. This book was written, fairly fairly early on in what we would consider, like modern science fiction. And so I think it's really interesting to see such a frank kind of feminist bent to things. I just think that it's really interesting. Not everything is like that, but at least in terms of Jessica and the Bene Gesserit, I just think that it's a really interesting aspect of science fiction, of a science fiction novel that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, like I said, the second book is just Jessica and Paul learning how to live with the Freeman people, and also Paul coming more into his life as the Muad'Dib. It's really good so far. I liked the second book more than the first book, but the book as a whole isn't like driving me crazy. I think it gives us a lot to talk about, but it's one of those books where while I'm reading it, I'm really liking it, but when I put it down, it's just really hard to pick back up again. And so I'm not like quite sure what's going on with that. I'm enjoying it. I like it. I don't dislike it. It's just a little bit harder for me to get into than some of the other books I'm reading right now. So, yes, that is my discussion of books one and two. Please let me know down below what your thoughts are, especially if you've read the book before. Don't spoil me, please. I'll be back next, if not next week, then right at the end of the month with books three and four. I'd like to be back next week with book three and then finish up with book four and kind of get back on track with Paul. But if that doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. I will be finishing this in June though, so you will get another wrap up kind of final review video. Yeah, thank you so much for stopping by today, guys. That was my Dune in June contribution, and I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe down below, and I will see you around the internet. Bye.